Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to the channel. On today's video, we're looking at a pretty big update from HOKA. Now I know usually these shoe updates year over year, they're usually just incremental updates, but this is one to really pay attention to. Guys, today we are looking at the HOKA Bondi 9. Let's get into it. Alright, full disclosure, HOKA was good enough to send me this pair of the Bondi 9 for the purpose of review. However, they haven't told me what to say, they don't have any editorial privileges, and all the thoughts and opinions are my own. With that said, you're going to be able to pick up a pair of the HOKA Bondi 9 for $170. And look, unfortunately, the price of the Bondi has gone up by $5 over last year, but if we compare what we were getting with the Bondi 8 and now the Bondi 9, I think that $5 increase is well worth it. But watch the rest of the video and then let me know what you think. So let's jump right in and get started with stack height. Now in the men's version, the Bondi 9 has 43 in the heel, 38 in the forefoot, and in the women's version, we have 42 in the heel, 37 in the forefoot, both for a 5mm drop. Now, HOKA has added 2mm of stack height to the midsole foam in the Bondi 9 over the 8. So you might think that the Bondi 9 would be a bit heavier. Well, HOKA claims that in a US men's size 10, the Bondi 9 tips the scale at 10.5 ounces or 298 grams. However, in my size, a US men's size 12.5, it tips the scale at 12.8 ounces or 362 grams. And believe it or not, in the sample size, the Bondi 9 is almost an ounce less than the sample size in the Bondi 8. So clearly, HOKA is heading in the right direction. Now, of course, if you are looking at the Bondi 9, there are a lot of competitors out there, and there are several shoes that I think you're probably going to be looking at if you are shopping for a pair of the Bondi 9. The first up is the ASICS Gel Nimbus 27. Now, the Gel Nimbus 27 has 43 in the heel, 35 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. It'll cost $165, and in my size weighs in at 372 grams. So it weighs 10 grams more than the Bondi 9. Next up, we have the Brooks Glycerin 22. Now, the Glycerin 22 has 38 in the heel, 28 in the forefoot for a 10mm drop. It'll cost $165, and in my size weighs in at 360 grams. So 2 grams less than my size in the Bondi 9. Next up, again from ASICS, we have the Glide Ride Max. Now, the Glide Ride Max has 44 in the heel, 38 in the forefoot for an 8mm drop. It'll cost $170, so same price as the Bondi 9. And in my size weighs in at 349 grams. So that's 13 grams less than the Bondi 9. And then finally, I want to compare it to the Brooks Glycerin Max. Now, the Brooks Glycerin Max will cost $200, so substantially more expensive than the Bondi 9. The Glycerin Max has 35 in the heel, 39 in the forefoot for a 6mm drop. And in my size weighs in at 379 grams. And you might be wondering why I chose the Glycerin Max as a comparison to the Bondi 9, and ultimately it comes down to these both being max cushion daily trainers that you can actually push the pace in. But I think we'll do a full-on head-to-head video a bit later. Right. Let's start at the top and we'll work our way down. I'm gonna hold this up, and on the surface this just looks like another daily trainer. Like, it's a fairly padded heel collar, but it's not exactly the same. In fact, if we look at the Bondi 8 as comparison, if I hold it up, yeah, look at that. You can see that the heel collar on the Bondi 8 is quite a bit thicker than the heel collar on the Bondi 9. So good on HOKA for kind of streamlining that fit. Now, the heel counter on the Bondi 9 is very rigid, which is going to give you a good heel lock or contribute to a good heel lock. Of course, if you did need that extra heel locking ability, we do have that extra lace hole, and you can see we've got that extended heel flare. Now, on this extended heel flare, you are going to see this kind of shaped bit of foam, and that's HOKA's 3D molding. Now, because we've got this extra bit on the extended heel pull, you don't have an actual loop to pull your shoe on anymore, just like we did in the Bondi 8. But I don't know, on the Bondi 8 it looks like a bit of an afterthought. So I'm glad they've done this. It looks pretty sharp, and because it's 3D molded, it's like very easy to grip onto. I don't know, this is the attention to detail that I really like. The tongue on the Bondi 9 is thick, as we would expect for a daily trainer, but it's not too thick. In fact, it is less thick or thinner than the Bondi 8. So again, HOKA is just streamlining the whole shoe, still keeping it a max cushion daily trainer that is built for comfort above all, but we're lowering the weight by, I think, getting rid of unnecessary padding. The tongue is not gusseted, but there is a lace loop right here in the middle, so tongue's not going anywhere. Oh, and I do just want to say that the tongue on the Bondi 9 is plenty padded. You aren't going to get any lace bite across the top of your foot because the tongue's too thin. For the upper, HOKA is using a engineered mesh, but they are using 55% recycled polyester, so that's a good thing. And as far as the breathability goes, like when I'm feeling it like this, it doesn't feel too thick. It also didn't feel very thick and warm when I was on my run, but I have been testing this during the winter time, so it remains to be seen how breathable it is, but we do have lots of laser drilled holes, so I'm sure this is going to be just fine in the breathability department. As far as overlays go, of course, we've got the branding here on the lateral side, the little HOKA bird on the medial side, some overlays right around the heel, and of course the underlay coming around the toe box. We do have that eyelet chain that's reinforced, and we've got the reflective elements that HOKA has just added in, I guess, for safety on the road. Now, up until now, I've kind of just been talking about the normal stuff that makes a daily training running shoe, but as I said, HOKA has updated the Bondi 9 this year, and the main update is with the midsole foam. HOKA is now using a supercritical EVA in the Bondi 9. That's the same foam that they use in the Mark 6. And look, if you're a HOKA fan, you know that the Mark 6 is a lovely, peppy running shoe. Like, that supercritical EVA is light and responsive. So I was really glad to see that HOKA has included it in the Bondi 9. And when it comes down to it, I think, this looks like a typical HOKA running shoe. It's the type of HOKA running shoe that a lot of people gravitate to if they like walking, if they have a job where they're on their feet all day. The Bondi has been a shoe that people in those professions and people that have those activities gravitate to. But what I think they've done by having this supercritical EVA included in the Bondi 9 is update it for runners. This is more of a running shoe than it's ever been before. And if we come down to the outsole, you can see we've got a good amount of Durabrasion outsole rubber. There's a pretty good amount of outsole rubber here. I am seeing a little wear already on my lateral heel edge, but I've been running quite a bit in these, so not surprising to see the wear there. Up on my forefoot, yeah, I'm seeing just a little bit of grazing on the rubber, nothing too bad. Now, of course, the Bondi 9 does have HOKA's Meta Rocker, so you're going to get smooth heel-to-toe transitions. Oh, and another big difference that is going to benefit runners, I think it's going to benefit everyone, but it's especially going to benefit runners, is when we look at this profile. You can see that sole flare, at least on the forefoot, isn't that big. Now, there is still a very wide base on the Bondi 9, but they have reduced that sole flare quite substantially. And it's especially noticeable when I hold it up against the Bondi 8. Maybe it's not noticeable on camera, but for me, when I'm looking at them right next to each other, it is very noticeable. The Bondi 8 with this big sole flare always felt just a little clunky on the foot to me. And I'm happy to say that HOKA has done away with any clunkiness in the Bondi 9. I have really enjoyed running in this shoe. Okay, so let's talk about ride. But before we talk about ride, at least from a runner's perspective, I do want to encourage you that if you are looking for a walking shoe, if you are a nurse or a doctor or someone that's just on their feet all day, the Bondi is still going to work for you. It is super comfortable, it's super plush, it's going to treat your feet right when your feet are in the shoes. But for runners, a lot of times I generally recommend that people buy last year's model because you can save a few dollars and the changes are so incremental. Not so this year with the Bondi 9. This is an update that you have to get. If you're looking at the Bondi 9 is the only way to go. Not only is the shoe lighter, it's more responsive. And even when we're just running easy in a shoe, we still want that responsiveness. Now, I've taken the Bondi 9 out on long runs, and my very first run in the shoe was a tempo run. And look, this is not a tempo shoe. Like, if you have the choice of several different shoes, you're probably not going to be choosing a max cushion daily trainer to go out and run fast, but I did. And I gotta say, I was really surprised at how it performed. Yes, it's a little heavy, but the geometry and the foam, they really feel good when picking up the pace. I mean, if you have to. I still don't think this is like a speed day shoe, but if you did have to run fast, so let's say this was your only option and you needed to go out and do a tempo workout or an interval run, the Bondi 9 is better than 95% of other daily trainers for that kind of activity. And that is based on the Meta Rocker and of course the supercritical EVA foam. So ultimately, this video is very high praise for this shoe. I really like the 5mm drop, and I really like the midsole foam. I liked it in the Mark 6, I like it when there's even more of it here in the Bondi 9. So now I want to hear from you. Are you thinking of picking up a max cushion daily trainer? If you are you considering picking up a pair of the Bondi 9? Drop a comment and let me know. Oh, also, I want to hear if you've run in any of the previous Bondis. Don't forget, I'll place a link in the show notes below in case you want to pick up a pair for yourself. But for now, it's Matt B. This has been my review of the HOKA Bondi 9. Be kind, be happy, run well. See you in a couple of days.